How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another video. As you guys can tell, I have another Jaguar in front of me, and unlike my other Jaguar that I had, which I got for $800, if you guys haven't seen that video, click the video description down below so you guys can watch it. This car I bought for $5,900, which is quite a bit of money, but it's a beautiful Jaguar, as you can see here. The reason you guys haven't seen much of this vehicle is because it wasn't drivable. It does have air suspension from factory, and that air suspension can be problematic as the vehicle ages. This car is a 2004, so it's quite old, and the original suspension needed to be replaced. Because the air suspension was so bad, it wouldn't hold any air, so I couldn't really drive the car. It was hitting the fenders and it was just gonna mess it up. So it was just parked for a long time. And I wasn't sure the direction that I wanted to go in. I wasn't sure if I wanted to convert it to coilovers or install the air suspension back on. The problem with the air suspension is it can be hard to find and it can be expensive. A lot more expensive than if you just convert it to coilovers. So that's why a lot of people just ditch the air suspension altogether and switch to coilovers. It's a lot simpler in a way, and it's less expensive in the long run. The downside to that is it's not original to the vehicle, and you know, these vehicles are meant to have the air suspension. So when you convert to coilovers, you're gonna get a ton of error codes on the cluster with the CAT system, which is the air suspension for this vehicle. So that's the only real negative downside to the coilovers. I personally, when I got this car, I realized that this car was really clean, so I didn't want to go and modify it, like installing coilovers and making it something that it isn't, if that makes sense. So Maxspeedingrods couldn't come at a better time. I'll show you guys how this vehicle looked when I picked it up. As you can see here, it's cleaned up and whatnot, but when I did buy it, the air suspension was pretty bad. So let me take you guys back in time and show you guys how it looked, and then I'm also going to show you guys the air suspension that Maxspeedingrods sent out to me. So as you guys can see, this Jaguar definitely needs some help. Specifically here, what we need to do is fix the suspension. It is pretty low in the front and also in the rear, which makes it impossible to drive. If I try driving like this, I'll mess up the fenders. Don't ask me how I know. So because Maxspeedingrods offers coilovers and aftermarket shock assemblies for these vehicles, I decided to try out the air suspension. So that's what we're going to be installing today. And if I haven't made it clear enough, this vehicle does have air ride suspension, so it's not that easy, you know, to find a replacement air shock for this vehicle. Also, I'm actually pretty surprised that Maxspeedingrods also carries the shocks for this vehicle. Maxspeedingrods did supply the front and rear air shocks for my Jaguar. This is the first time that I'm gonna open them up. Let's see how they look. I'm pretty excited because, you know, these air shocks can be pretty pricey. These appear to be the rear, and first impression is I would say they're very well packaged. And something I think that you should expect when you're getting something new and that could be this expensive. So this is the rear. We're gonna unbox the fronts as well. This appears to be the front. They're also packaged very nicely. Let's go ahead and get these guys out of the bags and get ready to install them. If your Jaguar looks anything like mine and is completely aired out from the suspension, you're not going to be able to jack up the car because it's too low to the ground and it won't clear. So I'm going to have to raise it with the ramps that I have here. I had to get the vehicle on the ramps and then jack it up that way. So I'm going to do that right now. So I got the vehicle in the air. I think this is going to be the hardest part in my opinion, because if the vehicle doesn't have any air in the shocks, it's going to be hard to get a jack under there. So you're going to have to get a little creative. So I have it supported here with the jacks in underneath the subframe. I'm going to remove the wheel and show you guys what we need to remove to get the air shock off. Once you remove the wheel, the first thing you're going to do is turn the wheel to the left if we're working on the passenger side. This is going to give us better access to the fastener on the bottom that we need to loosen up. This fastener right here is a T60 And what I like to do is break this fastener loose by hand. It might be on there a little tight, so using a breaker bar might help as well. Alright, looks like it broke loose. Yeah, that bolt might be on there pretty tight, so breaker bar is definitely needed. So the next thing you'll do is remove the solenoid to the air shock. You just gotta press it on the side and this connector will come out as you guys see. And then you also want to remove the line for the air shock. This is a 12 millimeter, so go ahead and break this guy loose and get the line off of the air shock. Just keep in mind, if your air suspension is still holding air and the air shock is full, you might want to do this slow. So now that we got the line removed, we're going to get those 4 fasteners off, which are 13 millimeter on this vehicle. So the air shock is free, but it's not going to come out because there isn't a lot of travel in the suspension. So what you need to do next is remove the upper control arm connection to the spindle. This right here is an 18 millimeter. Go ahead and get this guy off, and that should allow enough suspension sag so that you can get the air shock off. Got the upper control arm off. I did have to use an Allen key. This is an 8 millimeter, and it fits in here. You go ahead and put it in there and use an 18 millimeter wrench to hold it as you are spinning it. That will get it off. Now that you guys have that free, all you have to do is get the shock out, and that might be a little bit harder than it appears. I would suggest using like a pry bar so that you can compress the air shock a bit. Even though it doesn't have any air, there is still going to be quite a bit of tension in there. So you want to use a pry bar for leverage, and you're going to go ahead and just put it underneath here to pry up so that you can get it off. So my air shock is being a little bit stubborn, so I'm going to remove the sway bar link also, and I'm hoping with that removed, I'll be able to push down the suspension a little bit more. That is held down by a 15 millimeter, so I'm going to get that off as well. Removing the sway bar end link did make it a little bit easier to get this guy off. So what I'll do is get the old air shock off and compare them to the replacements. Alright, so on the left hand side we have the old air shock. As you can see here, this might be original. And it looks pretty much identical to the replacement. It does have warnings on here to let you know if it does have air. Don't, try to remove it. Remove the air first and then try to get the shock off. So I'm going to go ahead and install this guy on here. It does have the port for the solenoid as well. So I'm hoping that this is a direct, plug and play and you won't have any codes. Only time will tell. But for now, let's go ahead and get this guy installed. So I got the air shock in. It's time to put everything back together. I'll start off by putting the lower fastener in first, and then I'm going to put the sway bar end link back on, and then fasten down those 4 fasteners on the top. And lastly, put that air line back in, and don't forget your upper control arm as well. It is hard to get this guy back in there, I will say, so if you have a buddy that can help you, push down on the suspension, that will make the most difference, I think, when installing these. So yeah, let's go ahead and put this back together, connect everything up here, and move on to the rear and show you guys how that is installed as well. The new air shock will have like a little cover covering the hole for the airline. Go ahead and remove that and screw in your airline that is coming from your engine bay. Make sure you don't cross thread this. Adding a little bit of WD-40 might help as well, so you can kind of get it started. And don't forget to put your connection to the solenoid in, just like so. All right, so we're ready to move on to the back, and after that, we'll go ahead and finish doing the other side off camera and see how it performs. For the rear suspension, to remove it, what you do is remove a 21 millimeter fastener that goes through the air shock, which is right there. Once you remove the rear wheel, look at the back of the calipers here, and you'll see the air shock. There is one 21 millimeter fastener holding down the air shock to this connection right here. So remove that, and then we're gonna go in the back of the trunk and remove the carpet so that we can remove the fasteners and drop the air shock as well. So now that we have this removed, you can see that the air shock is pretty much free. So what we got to do is now remove the 4 fasteners that hold this to the body. The microphone actually turned off for these next few clips, so I'm going to do a voiceover. But in the back, once you open up the trunk and you pull back the carpet, you'll see the 4 nuts that are holding the shock to the body, along with the airline and the electrical connection to the solenoid. You can see that I'm pointing here to this foam. It's actually covering this whole assembly here. So all you gotta do is lift it up and move it off to the side. If I haven't said so already, this line is an 11 millimeter. So that's what I'm using right now to remove it. And these other nuts on the other side are gonna be 13 as well. So get that stuff taken care of. And once you remove everything, the air shock will come down. At this point, the air shock is completely free, so just be careful when you are wiggling it, because it could come down and hit you in the head. Don't ask me how I know. Now, the hard thing about getting this air shock off the car is actually fitting it through this small crevice. What you can do is, on the right hand side, there is a outer tie rod for the rear suspension, or I guess I should say the rear steering. You can remove this by removing that nut and fastener. This adds to the job, so I tend to not do things like that. So even though I am struggling in these next few clips, it can be done without removing this assembly here. But as you can see, you might scratch up the shock a bit. If you are concerned about that, then yes, remove this outer tie rod connection to the knuckle, and it will make it a lot easier to install the replacement. What you can also do that I've learned later on doing the passenger side is you can actually install this air shock from the top instead of trying to get it off from the bottom, which what I'm doing is here. So doing it from the top will make it a little bit easier, but regardless, you know, it can be done either way. On the left hand side is the old air shock, and on the right hand side is the replacement. They look pretty much the same. And you can see this old one was leaking pretty bad here, so it might be original. I'm excited to get this replacement in. Let's go ahead and get it done before it gets too late, and then we're gonna go ahead and give it a test drive after I finish doing the passenger side. Installation of the air shock is pretty much the opposite of what we did to take it out. You might struggle a little bit to install this one as well, since the holes for the top mount are hidden and you kind of have to just wiggle it around. It might be helpful to have somebody else hold the air shock while you start the nuts above. Just things to consider, but it can be done if you are by yourself. I'm gonna get this guy installed and finish putting it back together off camera. So I finished doing the rear. I did the other one off camera, and I wanted to show you guys the driver's side here. I actually found it a little bit easier to just remove the sway bar and link off altogether. It makes it easier to install and to remove the air shock, so definitely remove it if you can. It can be a little difficult because the original nuts on here are like a nylon nut, and they love to spin, so you kind of have to get creative with the Allen. But if the bolt on the Allen is messed up, then it might be hard. So it just, you know, depends on your situation, but I did find it easier to do it this way. So I'm gonna get this last air shock in, and we're gonna go ahead and clear any codes that it has on the air suspension, and then it should in theory, raise up. I finished installing the air suspension. I did connect my scan tool here, and we're gonna go to air suspension, and it is gonna have some codes because we were just messing with everything. Read the codes. As you can see, we have issues with the air shocks. I'm gonna clear the code. Once I clear it, it should, in theory, start airing up the air shocks. And it might be hard to capture that on video. Alright, so it took a while of me clearing the code, and I did have to lower down the vehicle a little bit so that the vehicle knew it was too low. So the air compressor just kicked on, and it should be airing up the air shocks as we speak. It might take a while, like I said, since that reservoir in the back of the trunk is fairly small, so it might take a while for it to completely air up the air shocks. But I can see in the back, it looks like it's raising. Hope you guys can see it. So this process might take a while. It's all 4 shocks that we replaced, so just give it some time. Looks like this side is leveling up as well. I'm gonna go ahead and back this vehicle up and put it on a flat surface so that it finishes doing its thing, and then we'll take it out for a spin. You see here it's raising up quite faster here in the front, and that's about ride height, and it looks like the compressor shut off. As you can see, I only have 2 lug nuts. I'm waiting for my lug nuts to come in from Amazon, but I think it'll be safe enough to back it up at least. All right, so this is the first drive in the Jaguar with the new air suspension from Maxspeedingrods. Let's see how it drives. Gotta put the seatbelt on. So right off the bat, this guy feels like you're riding on a cloud, if you can imagine that. So from just driving it right now, it feels really good. It doesn't feel bad at all. It feels like original shocks. I have really old tires on this Jaguar, so for me to say that it still rides really good is saying something, I would say. So this vehicle does have 2 settings. It has a sport setting, and it has like the comfort setting. These air shocks are meant for the regular XJRs, which are not the supercharged models with the sport suspension. Even though that's the case, the air shocks still work fine with this vehicle, and it hasn't triggered any codes on the dash here for the CAT system, the air suspension. So it hasn't triggered any codes, and I can toggle from sport to comfort, and I do notice that it raises and lowers the suspension a bit to accommodate that. So everything is working how it should be. I don't see any error codes. I don't see anything wrong here. So I'm going about 50 right now, and it feels really smooth. This car does need a little bit of suspension work, but I don't feel any of that transferring to me. Everything is feeling good here. I am really happy because this car, even though, you know, you guys haven't seen it, I've owned it for about 1.5 years, and I haven't really been able to drive it because the air suspension has always been a problem with this car. And I'm so happy that I finally got it sorted out and we don't have any of those issues anymore. As you guys saw from the beginning of the video, it wasn't drivable with the suspension being so low to the floor because there was no air in the shocks. Because this vehicle has been sitting for so long, I'm gonna take it to the car wash just to give it a quick rinse so that you guys can see how it looks once it's washed up. When I got it, it was in perfect condition, but now that it's been 1 year that it's been parked, it has been scratched and pooped on from birds. I can't remember the last time that I took it to get a car wash. These trucks are meant to be OEM replacements, and if somebody were to ask me if these would work with the Jaguars, I would say yes, because I haven't had any issues with them so far. No air suspension codes, which is one of the biggest things that people worry about when they're going with aftermarket air suspension. So this is the Jaguar. Now that it's been through the car wash, it looks 10 times better, as you can see. Going back to the air shocks, everything is working as it should. As you guys can see, the front looks pretty good there. It's not sagging. The rear also looks good. So right here, it's in the sport mode. If I were to switch it off, it should raise up the vehicle a little bit once we start driving. I won't do that right now just because it does take a bit to do, but it does work. So what are my thoughts about these OEM replacement air shocks from Maxspeedingrods? Well, I think they're a 10 out of 10. It solved the problem that I had, which was the faulty air suspension, and the vehicle rides really good. There is no difference between this and OEM that I've encountered. Everything looks really good. Everything is packaged really good. So I don't think you're gonna encounter any problems with these replacement parts for these vehicles. As you guys know, I've been partnered up with Maxspeedingrods for some time now, and there is something that I've learned about them. If there is something that went wrong, or if there's something that didn't work out, message them, explain to them what's going on, and more often than not, they're gonna take care of you. And that is something that I can appreciate. Not a lot of companies will do that for you. So if there's anything wrong, just message them, hit them up, hey, I ran into a problem, explain to them what's going on, and they'll take care of you because they've taken care of me. If you guys want to pick up a set of air suspension for your vehicle, definitely check the video description down below so that you guys can pick up a set as well. They offer a variety of different replacement parts for your vehicles, not just coilovers or air shocks. They also offer, lower control arms, turbos, you name it. So definitely give them a shot. And if you guys have a Jaguar like mine and you want to pick up a set of air suspension, I will leave a link in the video description down below so that you guys can pick them up as well, along with a discount code. Once again, huge thanks to Maxspeedingrods for saving my vehicle. Because of them, I'm able to drive this car again, and I'm so grateful that they were able to help me out.